are 1 month into the NFL season, and for the first time this season, I actually feel like we're starting to get a better idea of who's good and who's not in the National Football League. And so, given it's Thursday, as always, we are going through our NFL Power Rankings 32 to number 1. But before we get into the video, I want to take a second to ask you to please subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications. Really helps out. If you're a fan of the NFL, you'll love this channel, as we release multiple NFL-related videos every Thursday and Saturday all season long. Now, let's get back to the video. So we're going to start out here with our bottom 12 teams, and basically all of these teams are atrocious right now. There are a couple of these teams that I'm going to give a little bit of a shout out to. The Chargers aren't that bad. They're 2-2. Definitely a team I could see climbing in these rankings, but with how much they lost in the offseason, and with the fact that they're 2-2, and with the fact that they really haven't had any massively amazing wins, I'm still holding them here down at 22, but you can see I even knocked them up a spot in spite losing in week 4 to the Chiefs. We also have the Dolphins and the Rams in here. These are not bad teams on paper, but injuries have definitely made them bad teams to watch and play right now. Yes, when the Rams get Kupp and Nakua and some of their offensive line and defensive players back, they could definitely rise into the next tier. And the Dolphins, when they get Tua back, they can also definitely rise into that next tier, which is where I expect they should belong. But for now, these teams just can't play good football, and so they belong down here. And the last team I want to talk about in this category is the Jacksonville Jaguars. This team nearly made the playoffs in 2023, did make the playoffs in 2022, and won a playoff game, and yet they're the only 0-4 team left in the NFL. Yeah, they barely lost to the Houston Texans, but I mean, I'm not even totally sold on how good the Texans are given the quality of their wins and what happened in their one loss. But still, the Jaguars absolutely belong as one of the worst teams in the NFL with what we've seen thus far. Doug Peterson has to be on the hot seat. And Jaguars fans gotta be absolutely loathing the Trevor Lawrence contract that he just signed. So I'm sorry, Jags fans, but you're down here with the lowest of the low. Next up, we have our teams 11 through 20. And the Seahawks, I did actually move up 2 spots in spite losing by double-digit points on Monday Night Football. And that's just because their offense actually looked good. They were playing a team that I think is good in the Detroit Lions, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a Lions fan. And they are still 3-1, and so as some teams start to do worse and worse, I'm gonna move the Seahawks up. I'm just still knocking them a little bit because the quality of their wins is pretty low. And additionally, now that the Broncos are 2-2, maybe the quality of those wins isn't as low. Our biggest riser on this list, though, is the Cincinnati Bengals, and yes, they are still only 1-3, but we're actually starting to see a somewhat quality Bengals team. Yes, I know that was a win against the Carolina Panthers. How much we can give that in terms of stock, I'm not sure. But the Bengals are also exiting September, which seems to be their biggest weakness in football. And so, yeah, I think 16 is reasonable for them based solely on just talent that this team has. Also, having Jamar Chase reintegrated and T. Higgins back healthy definitely helps. The other thing I quickly want to talk about in this 10 through 20 range is our 11 through 13, which now is 3 NFC East teams. The Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Commanders. Man, this division every year is always one of the craziest. Who would have thought the Commanders would be competing with the Cowboys and Eagles at the start of the season? Definitely not me, but this is absolutely where these 3 teams belong. The Cowboys and the Eagles have been inconsistent to say the least, and the Commanders are leading the division and actually look pretty good, at least offensively. Yeah, their defense leaves a lot to be desired, and once these teams start playing each other, we'll probably get a little bit of a better understanding on who truly is the divisional favorite. But the fact that it's this close and the 3 teams do line up here at 11 through 13 is kind of wild to me. And now moving on to our top 10. At number 10, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 3-1, moving up 2 spots from where they were in our week 4 power rankings. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a really good team. They've had some strong wins, beating the Eagles, the Lions, and the Commanders, all of whom I have in the top half of these power rankings. Their only loss was to the Denver Broncos, and I don't know what the hell happened there. But the Buccaneers absolutely seem legit. Baker Mayfield looks like a good quarterback, and this team certainly belongs in the top 10. I definitely think some people could have the Buccaneers higher than I do, and if they keep winning, they will absolutely continue to rise in these rankings. But this is still a team I'm not fully sold on just because I don't know what their ceiling is. I think they have a very good floor, but I'm not sure how they'll be able to perform when they play against the top tier teams in meaningful games. At number 9, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers falling 3 spots from number 6 in last week's iteration of the power rankings. The Steelers are 3-1, but they did lose to the Indianapolis Colts last week. The Joe Flacco-led Indianapolis Colts after Anthony Richardson got injured early on in that game. Though, that being said, Anthony Richardson actually was driving the ball pretty effectively against the Steelers prior to leaving the game. So I think he still could have performed equally well for the Colts and beat the Steelers, much like Joe Flacco did do. The thing with the Steelers is their defense is otherworldly. One of the best defenses in the NFL. But I don't think Justin Fields is the answer on offense. I hope that the Steelers make what I think is the right decision and move to Russell Wilson. I know we all look at Fields as the more exciting quarterback and Russell Wilson as the bum who the Denver Broncos cut before his contract even started and basically crippled their entire cap situation. I get it, but it doesn't mean that Russell Wilson isn't probably the more talented quarterback and probably the more effective quarterback to run this offense. There's a reason he was named the starter so early in the offseason. The only reason he didn't start the season is because of some level of injury. And yes, Justin Fields has won games. But guess what? So did Mason Rudolph. So did Kenny Pickett. The absolute atrocity that has been the quarterback room for the Pittsburgh Steelers over the past few years is known to us all. Yet this team still put up winning records every year. You cannot look to wins and losses for the Pittsburgh Steelers as an effective metric for their quarterback play. And so I think they could absolutely be one of the best teams in the NFL if they move to Russell Wilson, but I worry they're going to stick with Fields. And so this is probably the land they belong in the low 10s, high teens, as they wade through wins and losses and finish at, 10-7 on the season like they did last year and lose in the first round of the playoffs because Justin Fields ain't him. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they go to Russell Wilson for Steelers fans, but that's just what it looks like is going to happen. Next up, number 8, we have the San Francisco 49ers moving up from number 10 in last week's rankings. The 2-2 49ers are still one of the best rosters in football. The roster is getting healthier, getting guys like Deebo Samuel and George Kittle back. Maybe eventually they'll get McCaffrey back. I know we're all scared of this double Achilles tendonitis, but I mean, they've probably known he already had that for a while. The 49ers still expect him back. I still expect him back. It's going to be a bit of time. Jordan Mason should be able to fill in fine. And again, the 49ers are just the 49ers. We cannot sleep on this good a team. It's why I never moved them out of the top 10 in spite them being 1-2. A lot of people might have. I did not, and that's because I just know the talent this team has, and we cannot look past them. And so they still hold here in the top 10 at number 8, in spite their 2-2 record. At number 7, we have the Houston Texans sitting at 3-1, moving up 2 slots from number 9 in week 4. And some people might think this is a little low for the Houston Texans. They've only lost 1 game. That game was to a team that is 4-0, one of only 2 4-0 teams in the NFL. How could you put the Houston Texans so low? And my answer is that the Houston Texans wins are not that high quality and not by that much. They beat the 0-4 Jaguars by 1 possession. The 2-2 Bears, who I don't know how they're 2-2, by 1 possession. And the 2-2 Colts, who I don't know how they're 2-2, by 1 possession. The Houston Texans wins are not against what I would call competent teams, at least in terms of what I've seen thus far in the 2024 NFL season. And so once the Texans can beat one of these higher end teams, I'll put them a little higher on this list. But the fact that they barely beat teams that I don't look at that highly, and they got destroyed by a team that is 4-0, but still they got destroyed, it's enough to keep them down here at number 7 for me. At number 6, we have the Green Bay Packers, who I'm still keeping pretty high on this list in spite a 2-2 record. And that's just because their wins were with Malik Willis, and they looked pretty competent as a team. Funnily enough, Jordan Love is 0-2 as the starting quarterback for the Packers. But those were incredibly close losses to a 4-0 team that's yet to come on this power ranking, and to a Philadelphia Eagles team who was just outside the top 10 and is still a pretty competent team. And that game was in week 1 in Brazil on some weird turf. Not going to hold that too much against the Packers, who still looked very good in that game. The Packers are here more off of the eye test than off of their record, because again, if you look at Jordan Love being 0-2, you wouldn't have them at number 6 on this list. But because of what we've seen from the Packers this year and how they've looked against some good competition, I'm still putting them up here at 6. I think they're going to figure this out, and so they still belong pretty high in our power rankings. At number 5, we have the Buffalo Bills falling 3 spots from number 2 on our previous iteration of the power rankings. And honestly, I was all ready to put the Buffalo Bills at number 1 in the power rankings this week. Had they beat the Ravens, I'm pretty positive I would have put them at number 1, going on the road, beating the Ravens. You know, the Chiefs, who were number 1 last week, losing a significant asset in Rashee Rice. It would have made a ton of sense. But the Bills didn't just lose to the Ravens. They got destroyed by the Ravens. And yes, it's on the road. Yes, it's only 1 game. And that's why the Bills are still number 5 on our power rankings. Some people might drop them out of the top 10 altogether, but come on. The Ravens are a very good football team. The game was in Baltimore. And if you look at NFL history, almost every team has at least 1 bad game. Like the best record in the NFL last year was the Baltimore Ravens, who finished 13-4. That means they won just over 75% of their games. Every other team was 12-5 or worse, meaning they didn't even win 75% of their games, meaning 3-1 would be outpacing the 12-5 record that was the second best team in 2023. 3-1 is a fine record. Yeah, you'd prefer to not get blown out by teams. But as an example, the Lions got blown out way worse than the Bills did against the Ravens last year and still finished 12-5 and went to the NFC Championship game where they were winning that game by a lot at the end of the first half. 1 game does not make a team. On stream, everybody was saying the Bills are washed, the Bills are done, the Bills are terrible. No, the Bills are fine. They still belong here at number 5. They're still a really good team. It's 1 game. You just gotta move on. At number 4, we have the Minnesota Vikings moving up another 4 spots, being one of our 2 4-0 teams in the NFL. And this team just keeps rising and rising and rising every week in the power rankings. I had them in the mid-20s to start this season, and they're already up to number 4. I did not expect any team to make this big a rise, and especially not the Vikings, given all the assets they lost in the offseason. We saw them lose Kirk Cousins, and then we thought maybe J.J. McCarthy would be the answer when he comes in partway through the season, and then he gets injured in the preseason, and we're like, Sam Darnold, we've seen the Sam Darnold experiment, and apparently we haven't, because Sam Darnold is on another level. I mean, if the season ended today, I think Darnold would be MVP. Genuinely. I think he has been the best player in the NFL through 4 weeks. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm betting Sam Darnold to win MVP. I'd still bet Josh Allen if I were a betting man, and I am, so I have. And that's just because I think Josh Allen over the course of the season will have enough good games that he'll take this away from Sam Darnold, who, let's be honest, there's a reasonable chance that he does fall off. We've seen a really good start from him before with the Carolina Panthers a couple of years ago, and he fell off there. I'm not saying Sam Darnold will fully fall off. I'm actually not even predicting him to fully fall off. I'm just saying that I don't think he will continue at the pace he currently is. I mean, the Vikings are not a 17-0 team, let's be real. No team is 17-0 worthy in this NFL season. And none of that is me trying to take anything away from the Minnesota Vikings. There's a reason this team is number 4 on the power rankings. They are really good. Their defense looks incredibly competent. Their offense has been rolling with Darnold and Jefferson and Addison. They're going to get TJ Hawkinson back at some point, which will be another weapon for Darnold. This team looks really competent across the board and definitely should be a playoff team in the 2024 season, which, I mean, I did not anticipate, I'll be completely honest. At number 3, we have the Baltimore Ravens moving up 4 spots from number 7. Yes, they only have a 2-2 record, but this team was 0-2. They won their last 2 games. Those included beating the Cowboys, who are a decent team, and while it was a close game at the end, it was not really a close game. The Cowboys had to score a garbage time touchdown, get an onside kick, and another garbage time touchdown just to make that game close. And then on Sunday Night Football in Week 4, the Baltimore Ravens decimated the undefeated Buffalo Bills, at the time undefeated. And so now the Ravens absolutely belong here in our number 3 slot. They're just a really good team. They were a toe away from tying and potentially going for 2 and beating the Kansas City Chiefs in the opening game of the NFL season. Yeah, they lost to the Raiders. I get it. That happens. But that's what we were talking about with the Bills. Teams will have a bad game now and again. It just happens. That's football. You cannot hold one bad game against the team, and I am not going to hold that one bad game against the Ravens. They are a good team. They are a great team. They belong at number 3. End of story. And at number 2, you have my Detroit Lions. They move up 1 spot from number 3 in last week's iteration of the power rankings. And the Lions offense was rolling on Monday Night Football. Jared Goff, 18 for 18, nearly 300 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and a receiving touchdown. Arguably one of the best quarterback performances of all time. I'm not saying it is. I'm being a little facetious. I know I'm a Lions fan, but still, he broke the NFL record for the most completions without an incompletion by 8 completions. The previous record was 10-10 from Kurt Warner over a decade ago. Goff went 18 for 18 and only 2 completions shy of having the first and only 100% completion rate in NFL history, because you need 20 attempts to be put on that leaderboard. But clearly you don't need 20 attempts to have a very effective game, because the Lions offense put up 42 points. The Lions offense looked good. The defense still leaves a little bit to be desired, but they've shown already this season that they can turn it on. In their previous 3 games, they didn't allow more than 20 points to their opposition, and so the Lions defense might leave a little bit to be desired, but the offense has clearly shown that they're here. This is a team we expected to be really good at the beginning of the season. Their only loss is to a very good Buccaneers team. This team absolutely belongs here at number 2, and they're not playing in week 5, being on bye, and so good chance they stay in this spot come week 6 of our power rankings. And at number 1, you knew they had to still be here. I basically told you that they're not leaving the number 1 spot unless they lose. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. I would have probably dropped them if the Bills had won against the Ravens, especially seeing as the injuries are piling up for the Chiefs, but still, they're undefeated. They're 4-0. There's nobody else outside of the Vikings who are 4-0, and if you told me who am I going to take as a 4-0 team, the Chiefs or the Vikings, it's the Chiefs all day, every day. They're still number 1. I don't know if they're ever going to give up number 1. That's it. And so that's it for our week 5 version of the power rankings. There will be no power ranking video next week, as I am traveling in between week 5 and 6 for work, and so cannot put together an accurate power ranking based on the results of week 5. But don't worry, we will be back for week 7 power rankings, and this video is not over. As always, we pick our Thursday night game at the end of the power ranking videos. And so this week we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers visiting the Atlanta Falcons, a battle of the NFC South, and arguably the 2 favorites of the NFC South, though the New Orleans Saints might care to argue with that, thinking they might be favorites. I don't agree, but they might argue. The Falcons are at home and favored in this game due to being at home, and their offense has been hit and miss this season. Bijan Robinson has not quite been the stud we all wanted him to be coming into this season. I still think he can figure it out, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are not the team he's likely to figure it out against. And on the flip side, I already talked about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and how good a team they are. They've beat 3 solid NFL teams, and their only loss is to a bad team. And so who do I think wins on Thursday Night Football? I'm going against Vegas. I'm picking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win on Thursday Night Football on the road and go to 4-1 and move up these power rankings a little bit more. And now that is it for our power ranking video. I hope you all enjoyed. Remember, if you do, leave a like and comment down below. Help us out, help us grow. I will see you all Saturday for the rest of our week 5 picks. Until then, peace!